thing when I make the
Yes,
Hangout on
yes.
Live. Did you just get that notification?
I just saw it pop up like right when you started talking.
All right, so I don't have to tell you that every time. I've always wondered about that. Not always.
I didn't get a notification, but the little sticker thing on the upper right changed to live.
No, you didn't get a blue box notification box.
Nope.
Okay. Well, we're live.
I see that.
Okay.
Just waiting. Do an audio check here.
Live
Whoa!
I just saw it pop up. So
Okay, that's loud and clear.
Well, that
Just a little slow.
loud and clear is good.
Yeah. Okay, so that be up. And Nightstar, old friend Nightstar. Haven't seen him in forever.
He's in the chat room today, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, Nightstar. If you can hear us yet.
You guys ready to record?
Recording right now.
And recording.
Anything we need to discuss? I guess, is it okay to congratulate you, Chris, or should we wait?
Yeah, it's okay now.
All right. Well, congratulations on the new job.
Well, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
So when does that start?
Either the 30th or the 1st, depending on when they pull the trigger on when I show up.
Okay.
I have to go up. Matter of fact, tomorrow I have to be in Sydney by 7 a.m. to do drug test.
The ever-popular drug test.
Oh yeah. I always had to laugh because I got a bunch of friends of mine that always dread when they get popped for random.
Yeah.
Because of course they're of that type of people, and I just kind of looked at it. They were talking to me, and I go, yeah, and I gotta go do a drug test, and they instantly go sheet white, and go a drug test, and I went, yeah, but the worst they're gonna find in my system is Tylenol.
Yeah. Maybe some poppy seeds, you know.
Actually, we're gonna talk about that because that one drove me crazy when that happened.
I had to do a physical for where I work, not just a drug test, but a full-on physical. And so when I took the job, I still lived in Texas, and the rules are you have to have your physical, I think, 2 weeks before you start work. And they said, so when and because I work for a hospital system, you have to do it at their doctors. They won't let somebody else do it. So I'm talking to the HR person. He says, oh, so when can you come up for a physical? I can't. That's a 1,600-mile round trip. That's ridiculous. Can I do it here and have somebody send you the result? No, we can't do that. So we made a special deal where I started at 9 a.m. and at 7 a.m. I was pounding on the door of the occupational health office saying, let me in. I need a physical now. So instead of 2 weeks, I got 2 hours.
Wow. But was it any that big of a deal?
No, it was, they took your blood pressure. They just basically want to make sure that you weren't going to fall over dead your first day on the job.
Yeah, they got to get at least one day out of you.
Yeah. And, of course, there was a drug test. And I love the way they did the urine test there. I peed in a cup, and then they poured it into this. No, they didn't pour it. They snapped on a lid. That's right. So I peed in the little plastic cup. They snapped on a lid that had a tumbler in it, and they spun the tumbler, and that dropped the chemicals in, and it turned green right in front of me. So presumably, if it turned red, they would have been a drug. So they see it instantly right in front of you, and you can see that nobody ever touches it. I mean, like you bring the cup full of pee out, and somebody with the gloves takes it and snaps the little thing on and turns it. I was impressed by that. I mean, there's no possible foul play there.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
It doesn't go behind closed doors, nothing like that. It's just right there. There's your pee.
So, the last time I took a drug test for a job interview was when I tried to work for Burlington Northern, a railroad company, and they don't do pee. They do hair.
Okay. Because that lasts 90 days, I think, it'll give you results.
Longer.
More?
Longer,
Yeah.
depending on how long your hair is. So, like with my length of hair, it's like 65 days. That's what they were telling me. So I was in the same room testing as a whole bunch of other guys, and this one guy is genetically hairless, or pretty darn close.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was talking with him before, because I knew about the drug test, and he didn't. And he goes, he looked at me in a state of fear, and he goes, I don't have any hair.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? And I go, well, do you have any, like, armpit hair or pubic hair? And he goes, a little. He goes, well, it's all going to go then. And I saw him afterwards, and I go, so how much did it take? He goes, I'm cleaner than most babies are. So the poor guy, I felt so bad for him.
But there
Because,
is an
you know,
autoimmune disorder. I forget what it is, but your body attacks your hair, and
Yeah,
you have no hair.
Yeah, that's basically what this guy was. I mean, he had little itty bitty stubble. Like, he just got done shaving his head like 2 days before, so it looked like he had razor stubble on his head. But he had almost no eyebrows, very little eyelashes. I mean, he truly was almost a hairless human. It was almost funny to look at.
All right. Well, now that we've told that story, let's do a podcast.
Sure,
Let's
have fun.
That's what people watching the YouTube video. That's your bonus. That's what you get when you watch YouTube. All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyday Linux, episode 148. Happy Father's Day, recorded June 15th, 2014, and brought to you by Element OP Productions. ElementOP.com. You know you're hurting for show titles when you just go with Happy Father's Day, because it's Father's Day, and here we are. But yeah, got nothing else. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Linux Show that's not about Linux, but about life in the context of Linux. And tonight we have another of our listener feedback shows. We have, I didn't count them all, 8 or so good bits of feedback. There are more in the hopper. I didn't empty the tank, so we can have more to come in the future. But tonight the show is up to you. We'll do, as always, Seth's great news, but the topics that we talk about will be from you, the listeners. And with me here to talk about those things are, of course, the ever-present, except for 2 weeks from now, Chris Neves, the Command Line Godfather, and Seth Anderson, the GUI Kid. Hi, gentlemen.
Hey, hey.
And just for the record, I am not your father. So
my daughter, this 5-year-old, drew a picture of me as Luke Skywalker because it was Father's Day, and I am your father thing, and it made me laugh because it was a fat Luke Skywalker. She drew me fat because I am, and so he had the lightsaber and he was fighting Dark Vader, as she calls him, as most kids do.
Nice.
But she decided I needed that picture today. She also, for those watching the video, made me this Father's Day tie that I'm wearing with pride.
Like a true father would.
Enough about that. Happy Father's Day, gentlemen. What did either of you do anything? Well, Seth, you're not a father, but I'm sure you honored your father in some way today.
said Happy Father's Day, I think.
Oh, there you go. That honors him.
Yeah, that's good enough. It works.
Chris, did your family spoil you?
Not really. What ended up happening, because for those that don't know, I'm changing jobs, so I'll still be able to do the show, but I'll be not in education anymore. I'll be oil field, basically. So we had to make a mad dash to our Dickinson, North Dakota, because there are no clothing stores in Glendive that have corporate casual type wear.
And all you have are jeans and T-shirts?
And all I have are jeans and some, fairly foo-foo-y type, button-downs that I wore when there was a special thing going on. So I had no corporate casual. So yesterday, my wife looked at me and goes, well, this is the only day of the week for the rest of the month that we can even possibly go out of town to get something. So we're going to go to Dickinson on Sunday. And I went, oh, this was Friday.
Yeah.
And so I went, Dickinson trip. That usually sucks to do in a day to get back here in time for the show. We're going to stay over the night. We're going to leave Saturday. So we went up this on Saturday, had a nice calm dinner with no kids because the kids stayed at Grandma's house. So we had a calm dinner.
Nice.
And then a nice breakfast, not at the hotel because the hotel breakfast was frozen and not like the movie. This was worse. But we did find this awesome little coffee shop that I didn't know existed in Dickinson. And anybody who's following me on Twitter, the pictures will be up later. But if you're ever in Dickinson, North Dakota, find the Brew, and it's just a beautiful little place. They converted an old church into a coffee house.
Cool.
So and it's really nice. The guy, whoever did it really well, because they even have like history pictures of the church with congregations and everything going on. It was just a beautiful place to sit down and burn a couple hours this morning, because North Dakota has blue laws for Sunday.
Ah, yes. And
we forgot about that.
When you're a parent, one of the best things to do for Father's Day or Mother's Day is get rid of the kids. So that's good.
Just for a little bit. For a little bit.
Now in my house, and I think like many, the Father's Day is the day that Dad gets gifts of stuff that needed to be replaced anyway. And so my gift today was a new universal remote, because the Harmony 900 remote that I use now, somebody, I won't say who, spilled some soup on it a while back, and it's never quite worked since. It kind of works every now and then. So I got a new remote. It's cool. It's the Harmony Ultimate 1. It's their top of the line model right now. My wife paid more than I think I would have. I wouldn't have spent that much on it, but my wife did. So that was my new toy. I got to play with it today, and it's got a touch screen and all that cool stuff. So yeah, it's nice to. I mean, if you have a vast media center like I do, and you've got separate component stereo and DVD, Blu-ray. I've got the Pi as the media center. I've got all those together. You really need a Chilton's manual to make it all work. Okay, so to watch TV, you do input 3, and then you set the tuner on input 6, and then you set the Pi to turn it to on, and then you use the switch. No, see, the Harmony 1, you just tell it all that, and you push the watch TV button, and it thinks, and it's there. And
nice.
That's what you want. And this one can do home automation and all that sort of stuff too, if I had it all. But
right.
That's the ultimate media center thing. And
yeah, if you have that much need for the super remote, the Harmonies are the only way to go.
Yeah, and I really proselytize people to them all the time, because they're expensive. I mean, you're going to pay, the cheapest model I think is $180.
Yeah.
And so you're going to pay for them, but it's worth. I mean, if you've sunk a lot of money into your home theater system, then you might as well do it. And I thought for that kind of money, I could buy like a Nexus 7 tablet and and run an app like that, but I haven't found anything, any kind of apps or even suite of apps that would make it do what a remote does. You'd need an IR blaster that's Bluetooth enabled or Wi-Fi enabled, and I haven't found any of those. I've looked for a while, because I really think that's the way to do it, because between things like Chromecast and that sort of stuff, the tablets is the natural thing. And you could switch between your devices or just play something on the tablet and cast it to your TV. But I haven't. If that project is out there, I haven't found it yet.
The only thing that I can think of, I got a buddy of mine who does high-end TV, stereo, home automation type stuff, and he's got a bunch of tools that a bunch of things you put together, and they're network driven.
Right.
So you have a box that sits behind your entertainment center that you never see, with all the IR blaster things that go back to it.
Right.
And then you interface with it through a tablet or a smartphone app. But you have to have the IR blaster box thing that he has,
which generally costs more than a universal remote. So
these weren't too bad. These weren't too bad when he was telling me about them. And I've seen them. The ones that he was showing me, he has a 3-port, a 5-port, and a 20-port. So you could put just about everything you need in it, and then it's all network driven. So you could use if this then that on the Android and start having fun with it.
Yeah, that would be cool. All right. Well, I didn't mean to get in. See, I'm such a media geek, which is why the Plex show last week was great.
Yes. You're not the only one.
Yeah. Okay. Any other Father's Day comments before I move into my movie review of the week? I was excited about this. Now, this wasn't just because I have kids. This was because the first movie was so good. How to Train Your Dragon 2 came out this week, and we went to see it Saturday, and it is an outstanding movie. It really is, all the way around, a top-notch. One of the probably top 3 best animated films I've ever seen.
I like that one a lot.
It's right up there with Toy Story 3. Which I think is also sort of the pinnacle. It's got everything. It's got really good animation. It's got a great score. The sound effects are amazing. The voice acting is really good. And the important thing that so many people leave out is narrative. It's a great story.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon, I would recommend you watch that before you go see How to Train Your Dragon 2, because some of the things won't have the emotional impact if you haven't.
I bet there's a lot of inside baseball with that movie.
Yeah, there are a few callbacks, not a whole lot, not as much as you might think, but the story stands alone. You can watch it without having seen the other, but there's one particular thing which would be a huge spoiler if I said it, but that one particular thing is very emotionally impactful, and I don't think it would have the same impact if you didn't have the whole story from the first one that led you to that point. So I blubbered like a baby. And it's not the sad... Toy Story 3, I blubbered too. When they were in the pile of trash heading toward the incinerator. God, I just broke down. I'm not ashamed to say it. And then at the end, where they, I'm trying not to spoil it. This movie's been out for 3 years now, but still, I'm so sensitive to spoilers. But the end of it, where the toys sort of find their new life, I'm crying at that one too. I'm such a woman sometimes. But this movie, How to Train Your Dragon 2, had one of those moments that just is emotionally impactful in a very good way. And it mixes. It's like at the end of Gladiator. That movie always gets me too. Not the battle scene, not where Maximus dies. Get over it. It's 10 years old, people. Not where Maximus dies, but when the Roman senator steps forward and says, "Who will help me carry him?" That's what always breaks me up, because you get that. Yeah. It's that story of a life lived so well that other people. This was a high man debasing himself to touch a dead body. And if you understand the historical context, it's very powerful. And so this scene had that kind of thing. It wasn't just sad. It was pride and sadness and everything all mixed together. And not a lot of stories have that. I can name a handful. Old Yeller, the classic one like that, is one of those moments. But this movie, How to Train Your Dragon 2, a full-on kids movie, had one of those moments. And at that point, I was sold. I was like, just take my money. I'm gonna buy the combo Blu-ray box set, whatever, from this point on, because this is an awesome movie.
I can't wait to see it when it comes out, or possibly purchase it when it comes to my stores, so I can throw it in Plex.
Yeah, 3 or 4 months from now, when it makes its way up to Montana,
you'll be able to watch it. Yeah, probably not that long. We had Spider-Man 2 on opening day.
Yeah, okay.
Which surprises me. But
wait a minute. They rebooted that trilogy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just making sure.
It wasn't the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2.
No,
okay.
It's the new one. I actually didn't pick this one apart as bad as the first set of trilogy.
I enjoyed the second one. Of course, if you're a fan of the comic book, which I'm really not, but I know people who are, the storyline, the spoiler is built right in. You know exactly what's going to happen. But if you're not, that movie has one of those moments where you're like, what? That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And enjoyed that one too. I got to do a movie podcast. I'm so good. But yeah, How to Train Your Dragon 2, highly recommended.
Cool.
And that's it. That's all I have to say. What do you guys got? Anything?
I hate poppy seeds.
All right.
Because I can't eat them right now.
Why is that?
Why is that? Well, back to the idea about my new job. because of the fact that I got to take a blood test or a drug test, not blood test. But anyway, my body chemistry evidently tears poppy seed apart. Like it'll flag in a drug test, and the only way for it to unflag is for them to do the full test, not just the quick one. And I've had it happen to me twice now, where I walk in, I know I'm 100% clean. I don't smoke pot. I don't do any of that stuff. Not to say I didn't when I was in college, but I don't now. But every time I go in and do a UI test for drug, if I've had a poppy seed muffin in the last, say, 24 hours, it'll flag on me. It'll pop hot every time.
And you have to explain it to them, or how do you get out of it?
Well, if all they're doing is the quick test, there's not much I can do. I have to file an appeal.
And then they do a blood test.
Well, and then they do the deep test, which is they rerun the urine test, and then they do if like the one time I almost had to go to an actual blood test because they just were anti me working there, I guess, and I was like, no, I need this job. You're not going to pull it away from me because of a stupid poppy seed muffin. So I have made sure this time around I have been poppy seed free for almost 15 days.
Well, in case you don't know, and if you're listening to this, opium is made from the poppy plant.
Yep.
And so if people eat high concentrations of poppy seeds, they can trigger on drug tests. But, as Chris has said, there are a certain percentage of people whose bodies react to it in the same way. They break down poppy seeds in the same way they break down opium. So what they're looking at is the chemical residue for both of those things, because your body processes it pretty quickly. And yeah, apparently Chris is one of those guys.
I'm just that lucky. Isn't
Yay.
that awesome? Not.
So no poppy seeds for you.
No poppy seeds for me. But the day after I pass that sucker, my wife has promised me she will make me a loaf of lemon poppy seed bread. So, yum.
So you're a fan of them in general?
Oh, I love poppy seed muffins. I absolutely would eat them every day. But so yeah, this 15 days of no poppy seed for me is just been agonizing.
Well, maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's because you've eaten so many of them in your life. Maybe that's what made the thing happen.
It's very possible. But yeah,
just the concentration levels have built up enough to where it triggers.
Because I've eaten like 8 in my life. It's not a big thing for me.
I love them, especially the lemon ones, the lemon poppy seed muffins. Oh, I'm going to be drooling after this show. Thank you.
And very soon, Seth, when is it that our Ambassador LinuxCon will be taking place in full effect?
Oh, I'll have to look at the dates. I was just putting it in there just to ask the audience, are there any burning questions that I might could address, or what would you like to do there? Obviously, I'll probably end up being a fool just because it's not the technology circles I normally hang in, but I'm not going to intentionally do stupid stuff. But what kind of questions? Look on the go to the website and take a gander and see what's there, and what would you like me to learn about so that I can come talk about it or show, or there are people there that would like me to try to talk to. So, we haven't talked about LinuxCon in a while, and so since it's coming up, I figured, we should throw it out there. It is in August, if I recall.
August 20th through 22nd. I just looked it up.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So, yes, our everyday Linux representative to LinuxCon.
Awesome.
And since we're sort of on the topic
I can't wait to hear.
Since we're sort of on the topic of Linux, and who knows if we ever will be again this show, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into our sponsor, LinuxAcademy.com. Guys, thanks for sponsoring us once again this month. You know by now what Linux Academy is. It's a place where you can go from being a Linux novice to being a Linux administrator by way of their step-by-step video courses that include all sorts of stuff. I've talked about it before, the PDF study guides, the downloadable practice test. They've got some really cool stuff upcoming. For example, one of the things that they're doing now in their we had a listener mention a while back that their PDF study guides are time coded, so that when you're reading the study guide, it's time coded to the video. Well, now they're time coding their quizzes, their practice tests as well. So while you're taking the practice test, when you're reviewing for it, you can go back and look at the time code where they talk about that thing. So that's a lot of work to go back and code all that stuff. So they're going through and they're doing that in their database of all their pre-quizzes. So, again, I don't feel like I need to spend a lot of time on it because you've heard us talk about it almost every week for a while now. But you log in, everything works through the lesson browser using their modules system. So you click on a module. It's like enrolling in a class. And the module consists of the different courses within that class. And then the courses consist of different videos, and the videos consist of different components. And you watch and learn and test your way all through those, and by the time you get to the end, you're ready to do whatever it is. So they're, for example, the Linux Professional Institute Level 1 exam. You take that module, you go all the way through, you take the practice exam, you're ready to go. Then you jump over to the LPIC website, and you can take the course, and you can actually register for the course from the Linux Academy website and sign up for the Linux Academy from the LPIC website. There's a synergy that goes on there. And they're adding new stuff all the time. They're adding web design courses. They're adding Amazon Web Services courses. They're really blowing up their content in terms of quantity and quality. And you get all this for really an insanely low price. I expect this to go up in the near future. I don't have any inside information on that. I just think it will. So right now, if you want to sign up for a monthly plan, it's $25 a month. If you buy 6 months, it's $20 a month. If you buy annually, you get it for $19 a month. So all of that stuff for $19 a month. But if you're not sure, you want to chuck out your $25 monthly and make sure that it's if you're not sure that you want to expend that, you can get a 14-day trial for $1. Spend $1, look around. You got 2 weeks. You can download a number of videos or watch a number of videos, look at the study guide, see if it's for you, and at the end of that, it'll automatically convert you to your $25 monthly, but you can cancel it before that and not pay anything but that $1. So when you check them out, and I think you should, use the code EverydayLinux when you sign up and let them know that we sent you.
So yeah. The only thing I'll say under that is I've always loved the fact that when you go through all the modules and everything, it's not just the GUI way. A lot of times they're showing you how to do it through the command line to give you the idea of how to take care of servers and your home machines without, relying upon all the GUI tools.
Yeah.
It's worth every penny that they're charging.
And that is very important. When you get a job. The great thing about Linux, the majority of distros are free, and so you can download them, play around with them, learn your way home. If you are going to go for a Linux job, you need to know the command line way to do things. Those are the questions that you get asked in the interview. You don't say go to start and click the blooper or whatever. You know the actual command line to do it. So you don't go into the package manager and look for the repository and click install. You need to know sudo get a lot of crap or whatever the package is. So and that's the cool thing about the Linux Academy is you're learning under the hood to take care of a car, not just how to sit in the driver's seat and make it go. Really cool stuff.
All right. And now, moving on to our listener feedback. And we begin with Alex, who reminds us that there's more to supporting open source than money. As Mark, Chris, and Seth, I am a tightwad. Out of the 4 computers I use at my house, I've only paid for one of them. $50 for a broken laptop that really only needed a new keyboard. Part of the reason I started using GNU/Linux, let's keep RMS happy, was because it was free. I continue to use Linux because I see advantages over other operating systems like Windows and OS X 10. Being a programmer, it suits me well. I believe I have only contributed money to 1 or 2 projects in the past. What I have contributed more of is time. I help fix bugs, update wiki pages, report bugs, write extensions, and find artists to help make things pretty. Being a programmer, I have a lot to offer to open source projects, but even people that aren't programmers can help. Almost every as a wiki. You see something that's wrong, fix it. Something missing, add it. Do you know a language that isn't supported by the app yet? Help the developers translate it. Are you good at art? Offer your services to redo the logo or images on the web page. Have you been using the app for a while? Hang out in the IRC to answer simple questions that come up. Developers hate repeating how to change a setting and the like. These are just general examples. There are tons of ways to contribute to open source projects. I'm not saying stop donating money. This surely helps the project, but if you take some time and relieve the developers from answering the read the effing manual to every question, they'll have more time to actually work on the project. So like I said, money isn't a bad thing to offer, but ask yourself, could I be doing more for the projects I use every day? So Alex, thoughts well said. We've echoed those very same sentiments many times, but I will say you, sir, in many ways are an edge case.
Yep.
And most people aren't programmers. Most people don't write extensions. Most people don't even know how to edit a wiki. So for those people, money is the simplest way to do it. And do what you can do. It's great. If you have those skills, awesome. I don't. I, however, am a fairly good communicator. I have written some manuals in my time, and that's been my contribution. But you're right. There's more things to money, but almost all projects that die cite lack of resources more than lack of wiki updaters.
Yeah. I would say, I will echo Mark's comment about you being a fringe case, because you're one of those few people that are. So for those that don't have the ability to, even if you only can do $1, some sort of resource is going to help the project that you love more than just doing some basic edits to a wiki or any of that type of thing. So yes, if you can code or a graphic designer or a web manager, or you know how to write web code for websites, that's awesome. Offer that ability too. But it's one of those things where you can't eat if you don't have funding.
Right.
So that's what I always look at it as. It's nice to be able to say, yes, I can help and I can do this and do this, but if the project maintainer or the lead developer guy is starving, it doesn't do a whole lot to help.
All right. So let's move on to Lou, who is our very first patron on Patreon.
Sweet.
So Lou writes in, "Hey guys, I finally did it. Maybe I'm even the first. You are the first. I just joined Patreon and added your show to the list. I hope this will be a great vehicle for you to generate revenue. I'm a long-time Linux user. I used to be a SUSE person, and now currently CentOS and Ubuntu. In my opinion, CentOS 6.4 and above offers great simplified desktop environment, and I use it as such. I did create a multi-boot overclocked Linux box, which I use for various items. One such item is ripping movies and music. I used Apple TV, and I hope that I can seamlessly get the Plex media server to work with the Apple TV for both videos and music. I will keep you guys posted. I did want to offer to your group to funnel the There's a little. I think he was distracted in the middle of writing here. I will keep you guys posted. I did want to offer to your group to funnel Linux questions and questions about Kali and NVIDIA, Raspberry Pi, and multi-booting my way. I would love to answer them. Finally, I'm considered compiling, not writing, a book about Linux that will cover more advanced topics. I've noticed that Linux books have gotten updates in the advanced area, although there are new areas such as embedded systems, such as the Raspberry Pi and mobile devices. The book concept here is to be sort of a cookbook wiki format. Of course, something like this has two primary issues. One is that the material will become obsolete, and two, you really need a companion site for technical books. The domains I'm looking for are hardware, OS distribution, security, embedded mobile, to name a few. I would love the comments and ideas from you all. Oh, and before I forget, bacon and coffee and chocolate. These items add spice to the show. I do hope at some point you would consider posting the recipes and even offering the cockerel slab of bacon for the opiates. I think it would be worth the drive to Atlanta. Please keep the show. Lately, you've had some amazing guests on the show. I listened to the Plex episode twice because I could not stop laughing. And kudos to the guy for the show topics, such as This Week in Computer History and the News. Again, would love to keep them coming. Love to help and keep them coming. So thanks, Lou. Patreon.com/LMNOP if you want to join him The slab of bacon he's talking about is like any crowd-funded sort of thing. Your that you offer. What's the word? Thank you gifts for subscribers, for supporters. And so my gifts are for the pledge of $2 more per week, you get an Element Opie shirt from our store. For $5 or more per episode, you get a hat and a shirt. And if you pledge $10 or more, I will hand cure you a slab of bacon. So that's that's
awesome.
That's where he's talking about there. So if you want to pledge $10 per episode, I'm actually going to make you pay. You can't just pledge and get some bacon. But after you've done it, I haven't decided yet what my criteria would be. Probably a couple of months of, I'm pretty sure you're going to stick with it. I will hand cure you and ship you a slab of bacon.
Wow,
That's
I might
awesome.
come to the show.
I might do that for that. No kidding.
Yeah, and a slab of bacon is expensive, so that's why I put it $10 per show. So that's $40 a week or $480 a year. So you got to be serious. You got to really want the bacon. But thanks, Lou, for being our very first Patreon subscriber. If you want to join Lou and be a supporter, not a subscriber, I don't like that word. If you want to be a supporter, patreon.com/elementopie. We would appreciate it.
I think it's awesome. I can't wait to see who. I want to know who actually gets the first slab of bacon. Because I think we should like put him on. Actually interview the man who donates that much money to be able to say, I have a slab of cockerel bacon.
Yeah. It's not going to be a small one. We're talking 40, 50 pounds. I mean, it's serious stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever a pork belly is. I don't know how much a pork belly generally runs, but it's 20 to 30 pounds in my experience. So anyway, another Mark, was moved to contribute. He says, I was listening to your show and responded by giving some money to the Arch Linux project. Our one Arch listener. I should continue to do so as I've been using Arch for several years. You all were right. If just a few dollars were given on a regular basis, the projects to you or I use, it'd help them stay around longer if everyone followed suit. So, Mark, I appreciate that. Again, I was not intending to guilt anybody. That's just how it worked out, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
in the same vein, John.
Was a freebie.
In the same vein, John says, thanks for the wake-up call. Great show, number 146, with many good points about supporting open source. I'm inspired by your commitment to donate 10% to projects you use for the show. I myself, as well as others, are just as guilty of not contributing to what we rely upon daily. I, too, will strive to make supportive efforts through time, participation, or remuneration when able. Thank you for the wake-up call. So
there you go. And we will, again, I think, Mark, what we should do is when we do our 10%, I think we should, bring them up on the show and say, if we can't get them as an interview, but at least bring them up saying, hey, this is our 10% for this month. The project's going to be XYZ.
Well, I've decided for the first month it's going to be Audacity. I literally use that every show, and I've never kicked them back any money. So this month's, at the end of June, when I get all of the money from Amazon and from tips and everything that's come in, Patreon, the whole bit, when all of that comes in, I'll total up whatever that is and send a donation for 10% of that to the Audacity project.
Cool.
I think that's awesome. I think we should do that every month. The last show of the month is going to be one of the show topics, or one of the show lines could be our 10%.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah.
If I can just remember to do it.
Well, yeah, we'll stick it like in the first show of the month. What we did last month. That'll be a good way to remember.
Because bookkeeping purposes, things tend to trail in, so you kind of do have to do a month past to make it all work out. You're right. Seth was an accountant for a while. He knows this stuff.
Well, that's good. Maybe he can help me with the new position.
Okay, so moving on to our next listener feedback. Looks like we've lost Seth. Hopefully he'll come back here and pick up where we left off. But Mike weighs in on poor people in Linux. He says, Dear Seth, Chris, and Mark, in the last episode of Everyday Linux, you discussed why poor people don't use Linux. I'd like to contribute to the debate with the results of a scientific study conducted last year by Anandimani Sendhil Muruganathan, Eldar Shafir, Jiayang Zhao of renowned universities including Cambridge in the UK and Princeton in the US. I include the link to the 6-page PDF below for your perusal, knowing your keen attitude to research. In case a nuclear disaster or sudden outbreak of war or alien occupation prevent you from reading it, here's the bottom line. Poverty makes people dumb. That, of course, isn't the way the scientists put it. They phrased it thusly. Quote, poverty impedes cognitive function. Any which way you say it, the less money one has, the worse decisions one makes. I do get free software. Do I get free software and we're going to spend £100 on licenses, making sure I'll keep paying for the rest of my days? The debilitating effects of poverty on the human brain forces people to do the latter. Poverty prevents humans from doing the financially sensible thing and going Linux. Poverty itself is one of the main reasons most people stay poor. The governments and churches and charities should, of course, provide an environment that helps fellow citizens in need de-stress and help them manage their finances. Instead, we live in a society that makes poverty shameful, while the authorities claim to help by giving out a pittance to the people who are in no state of mind to make the most of it, and that's how the coins of the poor keep flowing to Redmond and Cupertino, as if those places were built on magnetic rock. Well, enough of my ranting. Thanks for your great show. I hardly ever miss an episode. Have a great day, Mike. And he provides the link to the study. I did read the study, Mike, because I am into research, and I gotta say, I find the scientific methodology used there fairly dubious. I will leave it to the reader, to the listener, to make their own decisions. Again, the link will be in the notes. The Princeton University. It's a 6-page PDF. It's not really hard to read, but to me, it smacks of the scientific equivalent of homework done the last minute before the final exam. It didn't ring true to me. It looked like they actually admitted in some places to fudging their data, not fudging but massaging it, and they refer to that as evening out the edge cases. But it didn't seem to work to me. Yes, anecdotally, we can look back and say that there is a high correlation between IQ and income. Yes. And the higher your IQ, the higher your income. And it looks like these guys, my opinion of it is that these guys went into it trying to prove something and made sure that they created data that did prove it. I will leave it to you to read and decide, but that was my impression of it. And I don't think this is a case where you can say correlation equals causality. Yes. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say that, that's fairly. I would say that I didn't get a chance to read it because I missed this one. But when I was going off of what you guys are saying, it sounds a lot like like you were saying that they had an income in mind, and so they were kind of tainted in the way they did the research anyway. I think there should be some sort of I don't know if this is the right word or not, but a double-blind study.
Well, they didn't actually do much of their own research. They compiled research from 4 other people and then did a couple of surveys. Was their methodology?
But I mean, exactly. But I think they need to. I think this should be a topic to find out. Because not only would this tell people why people don't use have choices in using Linux or something of that sort, but they would also tell maybe there'd be some tattletale marks or moments where we could say because of them being poor, this is why they're staying poor, type thing.
I mean, it's not something I talk about a lot, but I come out of fairly extreme poverty. My growing up was one of federal assistance and charitable assistance, and just to get by. I don't want to go into the details. It's not the place for it, but I will say that my experience of coming out of poverty and planting myself firmly into the middle class, what I have seen and what it has taught me is that anybody can be anything they want to be. That's one of the wonderful things about the American system. There is no caste. There is no predetermination of what you will be in your life. Whatever you're willing to do to be what you are, it can happen. And I am an example of that. I came from nothing, and I'm certainly not rich and famous, but I broke that generational bond of poverty that I was born into. And you know, it can be done. It's hard. I mean, we use phrases like disadvantaged. It's okay to be disadvantaged. Disadvantaged by definition means you don't have advantage. In other words, you're like everybody else. Everybody is disadvantaged, and only a select few are advantaged. That's what the words mean. And so we refer to people as disadvantaged like it's a bad thing. No, that's normal. To be normal is to not have an advantage. So I came from an economic and a social, quote, disadvantage, and I worked harder than the people around me. Plain and simple. I'm a smart guy, so I get some credit for that. You know, I was given a set of tools to work with, but it was up to me to work with them.
Yeah, see, Mark, and I've never said
I
this
want to
either.
get back. I want to get back to his study. There is also I read a different article this week, and it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt there is a correlation between the latitudes that the most tornadoes touch down the United States correspond to the latitudes that have the greatest number of Waffle Houses. So therefore,
you can prove anything.
You can prove it, and this is a case where obviously I don't think correlation equals causation, and the study is flawed, to say the least. I'm not saying there isn't a link there. I'm just saying this study does nothing to prove the link. This is somebody who, you know, it's like, have you ever given somebody an aspirin? Do you wear shoes? Okay, everybody who wears shoes is a drug dealer. See, I proved it with a study that you did nothing. You just threw some questions out there to arrive at the answer you wanted, and that's my take on that article as well. So.
All right, Chris, you were saying?
Yeah, and I can put that in the show notes if we want to show there. It's from climatecentral.org.
The only thing I was going to say, Mark, is that is something I didn't know about you, and I can honestly echo that with you. I'm also one that came out of a poverty family, government and friendly assistance from churches and such growing up. And now I can honestly say I'm no longer there and firmly, again, planted in the middle class. So it can be done, but it is painful and it takes a long time and a lot of determination.
Yeah. So, yes, there is a link between poverty and IQ. I don't accept the assertion that being poor makes you dumb. I reject that. Plain and simple. Okay, moving right on. Tony responds to episode 144. He says, "Hey guys, I just got done listening to episode 144, and Mark asked for my opinion on when does a person have a right to complain. Okay, maybe not mine specifically, but the listeners of EDL, of which I am one. So here's my 2 cents worth. First, let me start off by saying that I've listened to every episode of EDL, and some of the Taiwan Tech, and some of the Periodic Table. I've also told Anthony at the Linux Academy that I heard about his product from your podcast and gave EDL a positive review on iTunes, for which you should send me a free t-shirt, please, simply because it was iTunes. But does that give me the right to complain about your podcast? My answer is no. In my opinion, by merely listening to your podcast, I have a right to complain. And to take it further, anyone who uses any project, whether they're paying for it or not, has a right to complain about that product. As you said, you want both positive and negative feedback about your show to help gauge the quality of the product you're producing. Do you want only feedback from those that have contributed money or used a product you endorsed, or do you want to hear from all of your listeners? Because even though a listener at this point in time may not contribute money or use the products you endorse, he or she may tell a friend or a group about your show. Maybe at a later time they can contribute money. Besides, what about American right to freedom of speech? Freedom of speech is not dependent on if I buy or something. Sorry, I don't mean to keep making this example about EDL. The same examples can be applied to the free Linux distro or Firefox. However, I also believe that the creators of product have the right to weigh in on a person's remarks based on how invested that person is on the product, i.e., do they continue to contribute to the project? Have they made a donation to the project, etc.? But they shouldn't just ignore it. I am in the service industry, so to speak, and I have been all my adult life. So trust me when I say that I'm not one to believe that customer is always right. So for those that use Firefox, including the Free Software Foundation, they have a right to complain about DRM being added to Firefox. Me, on the other hand, I don't use Firefox. I use Chrome and Midori, so I'll keep my comments about Firefox to myself. Remember, Mark, you asked. Anyway, keep up the great work. Linux forever. Apple starting to rot. Tony V. The only thing I'll say, Tony, about your statement, the only thing that I want to rebut in any way is that Americans do have a right for their speech not to be abridged. We're talking about the American right to free speech, specifically to the government not telling people what they can and can't say. It doesn't have anything to do with this. You can say what you want, but you don't have any right to be heard. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Guys, what do you think?
I was going to say the same thing. I have a right not to listen when people talk. So, but no, I totally, I agree with a lot of what Tony says. You know, people, if you listen to what somebody says who doesn't like your product, maybe if you take some of what they say to heart, more people will like it in the future. So you can't just say you didn't give me money, therefore I don't care about you. But at the same token, maybe it doesn't apply as much as somebody who does support, whether it be distros, Firefox, you know, whatever. Somebody who's never been to McDonald's, you know, obviously McDonald's doesn't care much what they think of the store, versus somebody who eats there 3 times a day. They're going to cater to that person, you know, until they die of a heart attack from cholesterol poisoning or something. But
all right,
yeah, there's not much I can answer with. I mean, we've all pretty much said our piece. You guys have pretty much copied anything I would have said.
That's what happens when you go last, Chris. You got to jump in there first.
I know. I'm always when I hold my tongue, I get all my ideas stolen from me. But you know, they've pretty much said everything that I would say. Yes, you have the right to say something, but no, we don't. You know, us and because you made the example about us, we have the right not to listen to you just as much as you have the right to say something negative. The same thing goes true with any other software or any other project. And as far as the Firefox gaining DRM, you know, it's going to happen because otherwise, if Firefox didn't put DRM into their code, how many people would drop them? You know, I mean that's one of those things. They have to cater to the majority, not the minority. However much that stings people, that is the way the world works.
All right. And finally, the last little bit of listener feedback. Dennis says hello. Says, just started listening to your podcast on my way to work today. Now, that's proactive listener feedback right there. And I really like it. Some of the other Linux podcasts are too technical. I'm looking forward to the drive home so I can listen to the next episode. Dennis in Panama City, Florida. So thanks, Dennis, for taking time out of your day the same day you discovered the podcast. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like it. We try to keep our Linux and our awesome, just normal day-to-day talks about as, you know, maybe a little more day-to-day fun stuff, less technical stuff. But I think we should put a couple of technical things every once in a blue moon.
Yeah, you got your bacon in my Linux. You got your Linux in my bacon. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, guys, quick pause while I reset my stupid. Just a second. And here we go. Okay. So that wraps up the listener feedback for now. That's all I'm gonna do anyway for now. And so let's move into now Seth's big old bunch of news. Some of these things are pretty interesting. And Seth, I don't see it here. So I'm going to take the lead with something I read this week that I thought was fascinating, and I'll go grab the notes while we're talking about it. There was an article in Forbes magazine that says Samsung that has released, you know, it's not the first time, but Samsung's long-term plans is to dump Android in favor of your favorite Tizen.
Oh, God. Really? Really? You
Well-
gotta be kidding me.
Now, I saw a couple of Samsung stories about Tizen. One is they are releasing the Tizen phone in Russia. A lot of the wearable stuff they're coming out with is going to be kind of Tizen. They want to be like Apple and have their own thing. They don't want to take Android from Google. They want to have their own OS. So Samsung is kind of what's going on. But
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, if you look at the way they've been doing things in the recent past, they're Android in name only. I mean, yes, Android is the basis of their platform, but they've put so much of their stuff on top of it that they're not even Android anymore. They're I mean, my wife has an S3, a Galaxy S3, and she had a new update just recently that came out that took it even farther from Android. More of their, what do they call it? TouchWiz, I think, is what they call their interface. And it moves even farther away from native Android every time they do a release. So it's obvious that Samsung's intention is to be a Samsung phone. And at that point, it doesn't really matter what the kernel is. And if you're if you're looking at Android, you're kind of sucking at the Google teat. But if you look at Tizen or whatever, which they already own, then you can do your own thing. So it makes sense for their game plan. But at the same time, there's a reason Android has 80% of the market. They're really, how can I say this? They started late to the game, and now they're trying to change the game in the fourth quarter. And I don't know if it can work, but I don't fault them for trying. There's almost no loss to them. There's almost no harm in trying it.
Yeah, at this point there isn't. But I can't believe that they're going to pull that back out of the grave because it was pretty much dead. I mean, are there even that many developers for it left?
I don't know, but I mean, how many does it take? As long as Samsung can employ people in-house, you don't really need that. And because it's Linux-based, right? And Android OS, Android apps are Java, so you can run Android apps on a Tizen phone. So there's no reason they can't be 100% Android compatible, but have control over the kernel themselves.
Yeah, I suppose. It's weird. I would never have thought that Tizen would have been coming back again. Somebody forgot to double tap.
Seth, are you back? Can you comment?
I don't think he's back yet.
I think we've lost him. Okay. And it's a shame because I know he's going to have something to say about this, but the network monster got him just as we started. So we'll circle back to that and move on to this Business Insider article that says the majority of video game console owners use it not to play video games, but to stream video.
Yep. I've heard that from a lot of people. I know about 6 different friends of mine that they don't play video games on their consoles. They use it to stream Netflix or some other type of online video or audio production stuff. Which is funny because not too long ago it was the other way around. And I noticed that in my circle of friends, people that are doing that are burning through their products faster, their video game consoles faster, because it's always on. And so I have 3 of them that have just started getting actual like Roku's or Chromecasts to take the load off of their video game consoles so they don't burn them up.
I mean, it's clear we've talked about it recently with the fact that Netflix is somewhere around 70% of primetime streaming now, and I mean, obviously that's the new hot way to get your stuff. And the problem is the boxes, the TVs with embedded apps sort of resoundingly suck. And so the only way to get it is to buy a streaming box that doesn't do anything, or to buy a gaming box that plays games and streams. But the price ranges are ridiculous, right? So you got the Roku at $40 for the stick, or the PS4 at $400. So there's literally a 10 times difference in price there. But the performance is pretty markedly different too. I think there's a market there for, a $100 box, the Ouya, these things like this that does casual gaming and streaming, and maybe the Steam box is hoping to fill that niche at some point too.
Well, the Steam box will probably, unfortunately, be at least as expensive as the gaming consoles, if not more.
Yeah, they
so.
will.
Yeah.
I would almost bet on it. But, Mark, the other thing you missed, though, is the Roku system. They have a $100 box. The brand new Roku 3, the actual box itself, sells video games, some retro games. And honestly,
but everything I've heard, everything I've heard about that is it's a not useful experience.
It's
gaming
horrible
on the
at this
Roku.
point.
Yeah.
Because it's all motion driven. If they wanted to actually take over the casual gaming market, all they'd have to do is start putting in like old Nintendo games.
Yeah.
That would be the D-pad and A and B, and that's all the game is.
Yeah, because the move right now is to go Android, go Angry Birds, and people don't want those games on their TV. But there was a whole generation of people who wanted Contra on their TV, and those people are still around. And dang it, I would buy a Roku 3 if I could get Contra on it.
Yeah,
or any of the old Nintendo games.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I would, in a heartbeat, I would buy a buttload of old Nintendo games if they were on my Roku. The other thing that I think could happen, and I don't think Nintendo is listening right now, but Nintendo could easily jump into this market.
Right, they already have the Wii U. They already have all the intellectual property. They've got Zelda, they've got Mario, they've got all these great things that certainly our age grew up with, but also younger people are into it as well. You're right. They are perfectly positioned for this, and they're just not doing it.
And I think it's a bad spot. I think that's probably the worst thing that Nintendo is not capitalizing on, because they can't compete with PlayStation 4 or Xbox One because they're not in that market. They're in the market for the casual gamer, the people that want to sit in their living room and just do something fun for a little bit and then go away. They're not. Most of those people aren't, the 9-hour gamers or things of that sort, or the super best first-person shooters on the market. Titanfall will probably never make it to PlayStation or to the Nintendo system. Neither will Destiny, which I'm drooling over Destiny. I actually might buy a console for that one. But Nintendo would be perfect for that market, and they started with the original Wii because they built in they built in Netflix streaming. They had the Nintendo Store with all the old 8-bit games. It was great. I used my Nintendo like crazy. But then the Nintendo, my Wii started having issues, and so I backed out of it because the hardware couldn't handle the stream. Well, now with the newer hardware, I mean, heck, a Roku can handle the stream. Why can't Wii step up to this plate and take it?
Yeah, the Wii was so simplistic. I mean, it only had an S video out. It was only for 480p, maybe not even P. And so they weren't poised for Netflix. Yes, you could do Netflix on it, but it was a substandard experience. But it still was my primary Netflix thing for a long time. That was how we watched Netflix, was on the Wii. And the kids still crack out the Wii and play Dance Revolution or whatever on it. So the thing is, they were onto something there, and then the Wii U, right, was supposed to beef up the hardware and then give you a handheld controller-like experience, and they just missed the mark, I think. But yeah, we are in this thing right now where streaming is the darling of the cord cutters, but it's still not popular enough to be a killer app yet. It's somewhere in between. And I think the market is right for somebody like Nintendo, or Sony could do it, but they're so invested in the PlayStation they won't.
Exactly.
Microsoft could do it, but again, they're so invested in the Xbox that they won't. But Nintendo, Sega has such great intellectual property too. If they could get into this market, there's all sorts of stuff they could do. The EA Sports and all that stuff. If they just brought their whole Dreamcast line back to the TV plus streaming, that could be huge.
That was on the Wii.
Yeah,
Nintendo had licensing for all those games. I remember I bought Sonic on my Wii. So what? Come on, Nintendo, step up to the plate. This is what you need to swing for, because this is your niche.
And so, according to this, back to the article that Seth put there, 50% of households have a video game system, and a third of those people. So, quick, what's a third of 50%? 27, 28, 29, 30-ish% of the entire U.S. population streams on their gaming device. Okay, so that's 100 million people. That's a lot of people. And yet it's still being ignored.
Like I said, this is Nintendo's key position. They should take a swing at this. Even if they use the Wii U still, and I know the Wii U sucks at this point in time, but if they added and started marketing the Wii U as this type of device, it would hit. Drop the price to even $200 would be enough. I could still see a lot of people dropping $200 to get a Wii U if they know all of my streaming stuff will work on it. The Netflix, the Amazon Prime, Hulu Plus, all of that stuff. If it was a Nintendo and it was a nice experience, they would fly off the shelves. I know it.
Seth, are you with us?
In and out. I don't know why, but yeah. I'm here currently.
All right. So, did you want to back up and say something about the Tizen story?
Actually, I was talking and I was sounding all intelligent, and then I realized that why isn't anybody saying anything? But I caught part of what you were saying, and the main thing with the Tizen is every time they've tried an Android app, it has sucked. So I'm kind of scared that they're going to lose all the great Android stuff whenever what they've done in Android kind of sucks. So hopefully, if they're going to push Tizen on the world, they will do a good Tizen experience.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens, because there's lots of space for somebody to bridge the gap between iOS and Android.
Right.
And a Tizen phone could do that with the emulator technology. It's Linux based, right? So they could do that. You could have this one OS to rule them all. I don't know what it would take what kind of deals you'd have to make that possible. If you could open up your own Apple store where users could just take their existing code and dump it into your store, and boom, now they're on another thing. Obviously, you couldn't get it directly from the Apple store. Apple would never let you do that. But it would be interesting for Samsung's got the pockets to do it. It would be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it would.
It would be.
All right, and next one, a computer passed the Turing test, kind of, sort of, a little bit.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I hate stupid links. Anyway, so if you've not heard of the Turing test, can a computer convince you that you're talking to a person at least 30% of the time? If so, then that is considered to have passed. And this Eugene Gostman, which was either a computer or a program trying to convince you it was a 13-year-old boy from the Ukraine, was able to convince judges 33% of the time. But I don't know how true or how good they did, because a computer programmer kind of got in there and just threw some random questions and proved pretty conclusively that nobody would think that was a boy. It has to be a machine. And one of the one of the hallmarks of the Turing test that they kind of did not follow is it wasn't random. It was kind of set up under specific questions or under specific guidelines for it to pass. And so, they might have done the letter of the Turing test, but I don't think they passed the spirit of the Turing test.
Yeah, and the thing is, they made it a 13-year-old Ukrainian boy. That in itself, right there, setting those terms limits you, because the test takers were all native English speakers, speaking quote unquote to a person who is not a native English speaker and who wouldn't understand Native American idioms. So
right.
So much of the context is thrown away right there by saying, by setting the parameters and such that it's a young person from another culture. You forgive a lot of things that you wouldn't forgive under ordinary circumstances. So they chalk that up to, it's just a foreigner, there's a language barrier, and he's young, he doesn't have a lot of social context, so we'll okay, fine, it could be a person. But you put that person into a normal, natural language conversation, and as the other guy showed, it fails pretty readily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I say, maybe the letter of the Turing test got passed, but I wouldn't want to count this. If this was my claim to have beating the Turing test, I would shut up and slink off to a corner, dark corner of the internet, and try to do better.
I remember years ago the Alice Project. I don't know if you guys ever did it, but Alice was a college student from Seattle, somewhere in that area, and you could go online and you could talk to Alice. And they set the terms there too. They would describe the scenario. You just walked into your college classroom for the first time. You sat down. The girl next to you introduces herself and says, "Hi, my name is Alice. Go." And so they confined the parameters to where you could only talk about college classes and in that context. And it didn't take long of talking to Alice for me to go, this is not even close to a person, because she ran home to Mama to, a standard set of answers when she didn't know what to say.
Really?
And again, this was like 94, right? So this was 20 years ago that the Alice Project was running, and she may still be there. I haven't Googled it, but the Turing test is if you can speak to a person either through voice or keyboard, or even with an intermediary, and have a normal conversation and not know that you're talking to a machine. That machine could be said to be intelligent or even alive. That was the Turing hypothesis, and it's sort of been the gold standard for artificial intelligence. And it just goes to show you how far away we are.
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
Just to be fair, there are some people who I don't know if they could pass the Turing test. So,
I know quite a few of those people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't think I could pass it. So, I'll throw stones all day, but I do live in a glass house sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on what we're talking about, right? If I get some around some of the guys at work when they're talking about comic books, I couldn't pass the Turing test. Or we haven't even mentioned it, but this week was the World Cup, the opening game of the World Cup, and I work with some people who are very passionate about the game. I could not pass the Turing test of World Cup conversations.
I couldn't either.
My set standard response when somebody asks me about it is, "Go sports ball. Yay, that team."
Nice.
There's still nobody better than Pele.
I don't know, but a friend of mine has talked me into going with him tomorrow night, Monday night, to a bar and watching America's first game in a bar surrounded by enthusiasts with a beer in my hand. I don't drink beer, but I'll hold one. And he says that once I've had that experience, I will be a convert to football for the rest of my life. We'll see.
I doubt it, but it's football. How can you not like football?
I was going to say, if you get penalized for tackling, it's not football, but then American football is fast becoming
Welcome
the same
to the NFL,
thing.
yeah.
So,
where you can do anything to a quarterback except touch him.
or look at it.
So we also often say on this show that it's important to use strong passwords. What kind of passwords do hackers use? Well, The Verge tells you.
Yes, they it's just kind of an interesting story here. They use most of the time stuff like pass or root or hacks, HAX, something that would be very simplistic and easily broken. So I don't know. I wonder. Just reading this article makes me wonder. Surely this isn't their stuff they're really trying to protect. This is just the things that they think is going to get found out, so they use this weak junk in there. But Avast, which is a pretty popular antivirus software, says that only 10% of the passwords were beyond normal capabilities of guessing or cracking. So that means that's a pretty simple thing then, and they're actually not very complicated. So hackers use just as weak passwords as everybody else.
I think it's more along the lines that these are the passwords that of the hackers that they wanted you to get, or they use something generic so that way people that are looking at their other accounts can't break in. Because why would you use a super duper monster password that would give away your method of passwords on something malicious and give that piece of information out?
Yeah, the average password length was just 6 characters, and only 52 passwords were longer than 12 characters. And this is they analyzed roughly 40,000 passwords collected from years of analyzing malware.
Of course, much of that malware is not written by a hacker, but written by a script kiddie who doesn't know anything and thinks that's a good password. Hey, my password is Leet Hacksaw. So
who's going to guess that one?
I would question it. Yeah, no one will ever guess that one. I'm going to spell it with 3's instead of E's.
I'm going to do password backwards. No one will ever think of that.
There you go.
I like it. Or
and somebody listening to the show just goes,
wouldn't change their password.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. In the fight against patent trolls, federal law is not doing it. So how about some state laws?
There you go.
Yes. Unfortunately, the government they've used up their quota of uncommon sense for, I think, this millennium. So we're kind of out of luck there. But some of the states are stepping up, and they are, and of course it's kind of hard because all the companies have to do is say, this is a federal statute, not a state statute, so we'll get it thrown out. But there was this one case where I believe it was Virginia. Where was it in the code here? Where they filed
Vermont.
And Vermont, yeah, I'm sorry.
The Attorney General has new powers to sue patent trolls back. I like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. And Vermont is actually, they're targeting the bad faith conduct irrespective of whether the letter recipients were patent infringers or not. So they're saying that if you're going to say, you've violated our patents, pay us 89% of your profits or we'll sue, they have to say what patents you have supposedly violated. Otherwise, it's just extortion. And so MPHJ, which is a, and this really needs to become a legal term, patent troll, they try to get this case basically removed because they say this is a federal jurisdiction and not a state, and the judge says, actually, it doesn't matter because it's not about patents. It's about your bullying tactics. So here we go. At least some of the states are trying to do the right thing and protect their citizenry. And I just think it's cool. If I'm doing something that's breaking the law, you can't just arrest me and say you're breaking the law. Now you need to figure out which law you're breaking. You've got to be charged with something. And so, again, you can't just say you're violating patents. You need to say what patents you're violating and how. So good for the states.
Yeah. And 12
Vermont
other
especially.
states have followed suit following Vermont's law and actually have passed laws. 3 more have laws that have passed both houses and are waiting for the governor's signature, and another 10 have pending legislation. So you add all that up, and that's 35 of the 50 states are stepping up to fill in the federal deficit.
Well,
Yeah, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like any of these states are the big states. Like
Right.
I don't see California, New York, Texas in there. But it's a start. And it is uncommon sense after all.
Speaking of a start, how about Alienware selling Steam machines?
Yep.
Well, kind of.
Yes, we talked before about how Steam is, or how Valve is kind of keeping the Steam OS on ice because it's not quite all ready to go. Well, Alienware, one of their biggest partners and the probably biggest name brand partner, they're going ahead and releasing a Steam machine. However, it's going to be running Windows 8.1 with the Steam client rather than Steam OS. Of course, they will include instructions on how to install the beta SteamOS if you so desire, but it's going to be Windows 8.1 with basically an Xbox One controller and the Steam client on it. And
I think
it's
for
one of
most
those-
Steam people, users, that's fine. They don't care what the
Right.
OS is.
Right.
Yeah.
I-
Well, there's
I
going to
don't
be.
know.
Well, there's going to be.
Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, that's right. Most of the Steam people won't care what OS it is, but I know the Linux people are gonna care. They're the ones that are gonna hold out for the actual Steam box with Steam OS. I know I'm waiting for Steam OS. I wouldn't buy this right now, because I want an actual Steam OS, not a hodgepodge.
Right, and this is a case where you're a fringe person. That's
Yep.
good enough is the enemy of great, and Steam client on Windows 8 is good enough for most people.
Yeah.
Because you could look at the Xbox One or the PlayStation, whatever number 4, I think, and you could argue that they're both good enough. They're not really great. They have their strengths. They also have their weaknesses, but they're good enough for mass market appeal. And Steam client on Windows 8. 1 or 8.1a, whatever Microsoft wants to dress up the suckage, is good enough.
Yeah. Well, I know, and I understand I'm a fringe case, but it's just the way that it's just me, I guess. I will wait, and I think a lot of the people that when they saw SteamOS being built, they'll wait too. I think this is going to be the guys that just want. They want a box for the living room. That's who's going to buy this. And
Yeah,
that's
so they're
a
not
bad
so
thing.
much interested in Steam itself, just as in playing their Steam games in the living room.
Exactly.
And which
Exactly.
I think Seth is right, is the majority of people.
Oh yeah.
Okay, moving on to our last story of the week. This one is a puzzler. So we just spent all this time talking about how Netflix, one of the strengths is that they're everywhere. They're on all sorts of devices, but they're changing their tune on that. And already it's been difficult, because of their reliance on Microsoft Silverlight. But now they're actually closing their public APIs coming in November. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and not to everybody.
Yeah, well, basically, they are closing their public APIs, but they're going to work with some of the popular ones out there, such as Flixster, Instant Watchers, NextGuide, and FeedFlix. And so I don't know if that means they're kind of absorbing them or licensing something specifically to them, but they're closing down the way. If you have something that now works, has kind of a front end to Netflix to manage your queue, which it's called the list now, or access your Netflix data, eventually in November, if not sooner, you're going to get a 404 error, and it's simply not going to work anymore.
So I have an app on my Android phone called My Netflix Queue, the letter Q instead of QUE. And the
Right.
sole purpose of that app is to add to, remove from, and rearrange my Netflix queue.
Okay.
Why? Because the Netflix Android app doesn't do that. So somebody else had to build an app to do that, because the Netflix app on Android, all it does is stream. You cannot touch your queue. You can't order a DVD. And so now they're dumping that API that this application uses, which is just another example of Netflix wanting to do away with DVDs. They want that whole market to just go away. They want to stop sending red envelopes. They want to focus on streaming. And so this API that's all about the red envelopes is the one that they're killing.
Yeah.
But also, if I'm on Flixster managing my Netflix stuff, then Flixster is getting the ad revenue for that, and not Netflix. So I know that's part of it. Netflix is seeing a loss of potential income by having this being done by other companies. I know that's at least part of the decision, but yes, also a lot of it is just go away with the DVDs and just take our bits.
Are there even ads on? See, I don't know. I'm a bad example of this because I run ad blockers. I don't even know where there are ads, but I don't remember ever seeing an ad in the Netflix queue management.
Well, I have Flixster on my phone, and let me pull it up here. I know I've seen.
Well, so on Flixster you might, but I'm saying they're not missing that revenue because it's not on the Netflix site.
Right, but do you think that Netflix is not going to come out with some type of app or something, or since they're only partnering with these specific people, they're going to get a cut now?
Well, frankly, that would piss me off. If the service I already pay now wants to serve me ads at the same time, that would make me very angry. I am paying them money so that I don't have to see ads. YouTube, I put up with ads because I can't pay them money. If I could have an ad-free YouTube, I would pay for that.
I would do the same thing for, and that's another thing that irritates me about Hulu Plus, which is why I'm not a Hulu Plus member. I'm paying the service.
And
why do I still have ads?
Pre-rolls, yes.
Yeah. Well, I can understand the pre-roll. I don't have a problem with the pre-roll.
Not if I'm paying for it. I don't want pre-roll for something I'm paying for.
Well, but the pre-rolls are only like 15 seconds. I don't have a problem with the pre-roll. I have a problem when I'm watching, say, a movie on Hulu Plus, or Hulu for in general. We'll just go off of Hulu because that's what I can definitely say about. And if I'm watching say an hour-long show and there's 6 commercial breaks, if I was paying for that service, I would be freaking out.
Yeah. And you do. And Hulu Plus, you still get ads. It's the weirdest, it's the worst of all worlds. So here's all the TV that's available for free anyway. But we're going to make you pay for it and then give you ads for the privilege of paying for them.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not a Hulu subscriber. Recently, I'm an Amazon Prime user, and Prime has a lot of video streaming, and they've recently added music streaming. But just before they added music streaming, they killed their API, so now I can't get it on my Raspberry Pi in the living room. Actually, they didn't kill it; they DRM'd it. So it had been DRM free. I had an app on my Raspberry Pi, so I could stream my Netflix, my Amazon Prime stuff that I've paid for, that I have access to. But now they've DRM'd it, and I can't do it, and that frustrates me. Because I don't have a Windows box by my TV.
And most people don't.
Right.
To tell you, I bet you the honest truth there is most people don't. And this is one of those things where it absolutely infuriates me that nobody is listening to the Everyday Linux people when we say that this is dumb.
Yeah. Listen to more Everyday Linux. Jeff Bezos, listen to the show.
Definitely. That'll solve the world's problems right there.
I mean, Amazon Prime is a great service, and you get way more than your $100 a year out of it. I mean, it's totally. I've started using the word totally way too often. I got to stop that. It's absolutely worth far more, and I would probably be an Amazon Prime subscriber at $200 a year. But they're headed down the road of giving you less for your money, and I always wonder why people do that. I would rather you keep the level of service the same and charge me more until I decide the balance is out of whack, instead of making this price the same and cutting off what I get until I decide the balance is out of whack.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the greed way. How much can I wring out of these people? You know, how high can I turn the water up before the frog jumps out?
Yeah. That seems to be the current way of everything happening. And it's no good. It's stupid.
And that's it. That's our news. So we will move into this week in history. June 16th, 1911.
Yeah, I found several good news or history tidbits for this particular week, and so I wanted to throw this one out there. IBM is founded as the Computing Tabulating Recording Company in Endicott, New York, June 16th, 1911.
Wow.
And last I heard, they're still well on their way to making money doing absolutely nothing. So,
They're middleware at this point. Yeah.
Yes. Just middleware. They don't seem to make a lot anymore, but I don't know. You know, of course, maybe Watson is eventually going to start making stuff, and I wonder if Watson could be trained to pass the Turing test. That would be kind of scary.
I would guess they could. You know, if you think about it, Watson, with all the access to the information that he would have, I would guess he could.
Yeah. Well, IBM has been on the frontiers of the things that computers said couldn't be done. You know, it was said for a long time that we would never beat a computer that could never build a computer that can consistently beat a human at chess. Deep Blue, sponsored by IBM, was the first to take down a grandmaster in match play, and now they've moved on. And Watson and natural language and that sort of stuff is what they're onto. So they're a moonshot company now, and that's because they've been around for 103 years.
Yeah.
And when you're a 100-year company, just the $50 they put in the savings account in 1911 is enough to fund Watson now. So when you've been around a long time, you can do that sort of stuff. You don't have to worry about the bottom line quite as much because you have so much built up there. I've always admired Evernote for saying they want to build a 100-year company. And they recognize they're gonna have to pivot a lot because you can't be Ford. You can't still be doing the same thing you were doing. Ford's still making cars over 100 years later. That can't happen for a company that got started in the 2000s. You're going to have to be doing something totally different in 2100.
And still doing probably what you started. You know what I mean? Because otherwise they're not technically Evernote anymore. They're a new breed of Evernote. So you'd still have to be doing something similar, but not exactly the same.
Yeah. It's an exciting time to be alive. Imagine how much the world has changed since 1911 and the rate of that change, how much of that has happened since 1961, 50 years in, right? So the rate of change between 1911 and 1961, and then the rate of change between 1961 and 2011 is pretty dramatic there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a exponential curve.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing to think that what International Business Machine was a calculator. I mean, a computing, tabulating, recording company. They built calculators in 1911.
Yeah. See, but that's exactly the point, though. They started doing one thing and they pivoted, still doing the same thing, just a little bit different.
I think it's interesting that we still refer to these things as computers, which is another way of saying calculators.
Yeah.
And that's all they are. It's a dumb box of rocks, but it's a really fast box of rocks. It does one thing at a time, billions of times per second, and all it can do is add one digit. That's all it's capable of doing. You can add a 0 to a 1, or a 1 to a 0. That's all a computer can do. But you do enough. You do that billions of times per second, and amazing things can happen.
Yep, that's really it.
All right, that's it. I got nothing else. So let's move on to our dev/random, and Chris is going to humble brag right now.
Well, it's not just that, because I'm actually going to do something awesome with it too. So just recently I picked up the HTC One M8. From considering I was a zero phone person to a what I class as a super smartphone, it's a huge learning curve for me. So I figured in the next couple of weeks I'll write up something about it with a nice little review. But it's a neat little phone. If you've never seen the M8 or have never touched one of the HTC brands, they do a really good job. I wish they would have a little bit less stuck-in software that I'm not allowed to get rid of. Because like the NFL app decides to crash every 5 minutes when I'm browsing the web.
You root it, you can freeze those things.
I know. I know if I root it, I can do that. I'm trying to go without rooting it at this point because...
Now, let me tell you the one reason you need to root it, okay? I'm not a ROMer. I'm not into having different ROMs, but you do need to root it so that you can use Titanium backup.
Oh, yep.
And that's the one reason I root every phone I own, because without Titanium or a backup similar to it, without being able to back up the root partition, you always go back to where you were if something happens. But with Titanium backup, I've had my phone die and they sent me another one, boop, done. It's connected to my Dropbox. I pull it off a Dropbox and it's there. So that's that one app right there. That and Wi-Fi tethering are the two reasons I root every phone I get.
Well, I have Wi-Fi tethering with this one. It's built in, so I don't have to do that part.
So you're not on AT&T then, because AT&T won't let you do that, even though it's built in.
No, I'm on Verizon, so they allow me to do that as long as I have signal. Yeah. But I was just on my drive for the new job, and I was kind of looking to see how many antennas are on the way, and they just erected 2 new antennas in the middle of the drive, and there's, what did I count? 9 dipole antennas on both facing each direction. So each tower has 18 antennas on it, which for Nowheresville, Montana, that's a lot of antenna coverage.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
But you can thank the Bakken for that.
And Seth has to sneeze, apparently.
Yes, I came across this website. I think it's called Atchup, ATCHUUP. It's an urban Vizian expression that's equivalent to amazing, cool, or awesome. And 2 links to kind of tell you what the site's about that I like so much. One is just some rare historical photos, and they're pretty cool. I'm like a history buff, and there's just like the first one is a boxing match on the USS Oregon in 1897. And like there's some pictures of presidents with titans of industry. There's some like Walt Disney stuff. It's really cool. And the other link shows celebrities with their stunt doubles. It's kind of neat, to see Brad Pitt in World War Z with the stunt double right beside him. That kind of stuff. So anyway, just some cool links for you to take out, lose a couple minutes at work, and appear less productive. So I'll be a better candidate for your job.
I like it. I like the one with the trees. The trees are awesome. Cutting down the huge redwoods.
Uh-huh.
That one just blows my mind when I see that. There's like, 4 guys laying across it, basically? 2 actually in the hole, in the side of the tree, and the other ones are, wow.
What a terrible thing we did. We had no idea that it would take centuries for those trees to grow back.
Yeah.
We'd never seen a tree that took that long. I think that's one of those things I'd love to go back in history and say, guys, just letting you know here.
This is a bad idea.
Put yourself in less than a generation, you will kill this entire industry, and it will never come back in the lifetime of your great-grandchildren. Just think about that before you cut down that log. It may not change anything. There are a lot of times we do things knowing how dumb it is. But the Redwoods Forest, to me, is a fine example of not knowing what we were doing when we were doing it.
Right. Yeah.
All right, that's our show, people. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your feedback. And if you would like to leave more feedback, you do that by going to elementop.com. Click the Contact Us button at the top of the page, and we leave your message there. Or if you want to be heard on the show, you can do that by leaving us a voicemail on our Google Voice mailbox. That is 559-IM-OP if you want to dial it up. Or again, you can go to our website and use the Leave Us a Voicemail widget. Enter your phone number, and Google Voice will call you. And you can be on the show in your own smooth and wonderful voice. We, again, as I often say, this is listener-programmed radio. We do what you want us to do because you are the reason we do it, and we appreciate your feedback and look forward to more of it. We have some other guests coming, I'm pretty sure, in the pipe. We have other neat topics, but we always want to know what you think. I love doing these listener feedback shows, and I'd love to do more. Dads out there, happy Father's Day. Even if it's not Father's Day in your country, you still should make your family buy you a steak, because you should.
Or at least some bacon.
There you go.
You know.
Something. And that's it. I'm not going to say anything else. Thanks for listening, everybody. And oh wait, I will mention one more time. I'll plug our Patreon page, patreon.com/elementop. If you want to kick us a few pennies or a few bucks, we would appreciate it. Thanks, folks, and that's it. That ends this episode of Everyday Linux.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, time to stop and export.
Ooh, what just happened there?
Oh. 148.
Apparently, I just stopped it. Didn't mean to stop it, but it appears to have stopped. My audacity. Oh well. One live viewer, whoever you are, probably Nightstar, since you were in the chat room. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you later.
Take it easy.